Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Hello and welcome to the Hoosier Football Tailgate right here on the Believe Network. And I would like for somebody to give me a little help here. Make sure I'm getting across in audio and want to make sure that I can be heard loud and clear this evening as we get into wrapping up the 2025 recruiting class. Hopefully everybody can hear me correctly in that regard. But if you're here with me, I appreciate you being along with us here on the Hoosier Tailgate. Also remind you that Bet Online is our sponsor, has been our sponsor. Remember, Bet Online, the number one source for all things sports wagering. With the NFL coming to a conclusion this Sunday with the Super Bowl, many different exotic bets are occurring, and you can get all that right at Bet Online. Also, don't forget NBA, as well as NHL hockey. Bet Online is your number one source for all things sports wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. And if you're joining us here this evening via one of the different platforms, Facebook, X, or with that, you can put some comments in the comments section, and we will display those questions. We'll try to get answered as soon as possible. And I do hope that if you do have a question, by all means, throw it up there and ask it. We're going to have Zach Browning joining us from Indiana Rivals here shortly to talk about the 2025 recruiting class, as well as the portal class this past year, to see if we can talk a little bit about what Indiana was able to accomplish this year, what with the recruiting and the overall transfer portal class, and talk a little bit about that, but get Zach's feedback on that. Hopefully I'm coming in loud and clear for everyone to hear as we get going here this evening with this Hoosier Football Tailgate. Remember, also, with our affiliates, you can get all that off the link tree on our bio sections of X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It will lead you to all the different affiliates that we have out there. If you would happen to purchase something from one of those affiliates, remember, we will receive a little commission for that sale. It's much appreciated as we throw it back in to the show so that we can bring you the best possible coverage of Hoosier football as we head into the spring season, I guess you could say, even though it's still the middle of February here, and we're dodging ice storms and snowstorms and everything else out there that the weather's throwing at us. But it's spring football is right around the corner. Hard to believe that you'll be into spring football here shortly with everything that's going on right now with all that. Couple things here with some topics that have been around in the Big Ten. Of course, we talked about this. I maybe a little bit alluded to it last week with Notre Dame center Pat Coogan, who played 13 straight games this past year for Notre Dame, 6'5", 300-plus pound offensive lineman center. Indiana was able to secure his commitment here within the last weeks. Huge get for them as, again, the offensive line has always been one of those areas of concern. But Indiana has been able to address that, as well as their depth, as they've got two solid foundation classes, I like to call them, and use the portal to just add pieces to the puzzle here and there. It's a good get. I know that they were looking and hoping to get the Spindler kid who ultimately went to Nebraska. But I think being able to get one of those guys, I think, is very good. Having graduated Kadick at the center position, now you bring in another experienced offensive lineman 1 year from a program coming off a runner-up in the national championship. That leadership that he'll bring to that offensive room, along with all the competitiveness that he brings, is going to be a huge asset to Coach Bosted and all the Hoosiers as they get prepared here for this 25, spring football leading into the season next year. But a lot of things are happening and going on. We're going to talk with Zach here in a few moments about this 2025 recruiting class. It becomes a little bit anticlimactic with this February signing date, which was the normal signing date throughout all of college football. A really big celebrated day has really become a kind of a dud in some respects. And, there were some kids that were added. Indiana, Jacob Bell, the quarterback, and then picking up Kamara's younger brother, to the fold as well. So they were able to pick up 2 with this class. But it's kind of become a little anticlimactic, like I said, from the standpoint, the vast majority of kids that signed for this recruiting class did that back in the early signing period. And we've already talked about the 14 out of those signees are enrolled right now, going through the winter conditioning months, and being able to be in the fold, getting acclimated to college life and college football at the same time, without any expectations of where a kid may or may not project out to. There may be some kids at the freshman in this freshman class that may add some depth. I think wide receiver being one of those. We'll talk a little bit to Zach on some of these signees that Indiana has got for this class, and also kind of refresh ourselves, because when you really think about it, December seems like a long time ago compared to February here and us kicking off this next season. But again, a good solid recruiting class. I've seen them ranked in the 40s overall in the nation. I've seen them in the 50s overall in the nation. In the Big Ten, again, they're ranked like 17th 14th or 13th in the Big Ten. And I've always wondered that, because all of a sudden you look at Purdue is up at number 6 in the Big Ten. It's just, I still think there's some bias in those things. Again, don't want to get caught up too much in the ratings and things of that nature, but we'll get all that here with Mr. Browning here as we go in a second. We talked about, like I said, we've seen Indiana in the rankings 55th, 45th, you name it. It's a conglomerate of all that. But the transfer portal was, again, very fruitful for the Hoosiers. Overall ranking is 17th, and I think in the Big Ten they may have been 4th. But overall, a very good 2025 class, another solid foundation for Coach Signetti, and a very good addition of adding what they were able to add via the portal this year. So it's been very good in that sense of the equation. We're going to get to Zach here. I'm going to try to bring him in here quickly. Hopefully this will work. If there is any echoing, let me know, because I can control that. But if I don't know it, sometimes I won't hear it. Let's see if there he is. Zach, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Are you on mute? I can't hear you. Let's see. It's always a thing with this thing, I tell you. Let's see here. Let's see. Try it again, Zach. Still can't hear you. This is crazy. Oh, this is muted sound levels on mine. Let me see if I can change something here. I don't know why it. Say something again there. Robert's giving me the sound check. I'm showing you as muted, and I don't know why. Crazy. Let's see here. I got to see if how I can get you out of the mute. I may have to have you go back out and come back in and see if that helps here in a second. Let me see if there's something that's ticked in the audio section that's causing this situation that we're experiencing here. Can you give me another check or something there, bud? No, still not getting you. Wow. This is actually mind-boggling to myself in this regard. Let's see. Okay, hold on here. I think I've got it.
Got me?
Now I've got you. There we go.
There we go.
Now, if we can just avoid the echoing that sometimes we pick up on this thing, we'll be set up for good. But now I've got you loud and clear. And thanks for jumping on here. I know it's kind of a big night, and I know that we're a football-centric show, but we can't deny that in the basketball arena right now, there's some things that are breaking for Indiana as it pertains to Mike Woodson. You want to kind of fill the people that are joining us here tonight where we stand with all that?
Yeah. Essentially tonight / this afternoon, everything was not necessarily made official. There's still plenty of conversations that are going on. Essentially, though, reports have come out that Mike Woodson is kind of contemplating between stepping down / retiring at the end of the season, at the end of this 2024-2025 season. Nothing's been made official yet. The university, the athletic program, has not made any official comments, but pretty much he's essentially contemplating whether or not he wants to come back as the Indiana head coach or whether or not Indiana would take him back as the head coach, kind of a type of mutual parting of ways. But essentially, it's trending more and more likely that officially, again, nothing's been made official yet, but it looks like it's trending in that direction that Mike Woodson won't be back with Indiana coaching the basketball team next season. Whether that's in his own accord or he's fired, retired, that kind of verbiage might vary, and we'll see what happens there. But it looks like he won't be back next year.
Yeah, I know that's one thing that kind of broke late this afternoon with all this and him potentially looking to, I guess, retire at the end of the season and go on his merry way. I know there was some speculation of him stepping down as well, but I'm got a feeling that he's going to do everything he can do to salvage some of his contract by doing it this way. I don't know the particulars of his contract. Do you have any ideas of the contract that he's got currently underneath him?
Yeah, so first off, I should mention that whatever happens, he's likely going to finish the year as the head coach of Indiana, so it's probably not going to happen. He's not going to step down or retire. At this point, that's most likely the outcome is that he'll finish the season. His contract, let me pull it up. I have the specific numbers here. He signed a new contract, kind of like a amendment to his contract in 2023. So currently, he's owed $4.2 million for the remaining 2 years on his contract. So after this year, he's got 2 more years left on his contract at $4.2 million per year. So that would put his buyout around 8.4 million. So that's pretty much where you're looking at.
Yeah, they may do something with similar to what they did with Tom Allen and his buyout, offer him a lump sum type of deal that he can take and move on. I doubt Woody is in any type of financial hurt, as they would say, with some of these contracts by these guys. So it's one of those deals where I think right now it's pretty obvious that things have definitely not gone the way they've expected them to go with the roster talent that we would expect based upon what we've seen with our eyes and things of that nature. For whatever reason, it's just not meshing, and some tough losses where it wasn't. I just don't feel like there was a big commitment in the regards to who was going to take a shot or what they were trying to do, especially like at Purdue, rushing down the court and taking a forced shot. Just wasn't the right thing at that time. But I'm not sure they had anything designed other than get the ball across midcourt and go, throw it up and see what happens. But it's been a shaky year for Indiana, and it's I think there was a lot of hopes heading in off of a football season that brought a lot of fanfare and expectations kind of evolved and rised. And then heading into the basketball season, there was that anticipation that it can continue to go. And they got kind of punched in the nose, I guess you could say, from that perspective. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember this is a team in Indiana that was ranked number 17 in the preseason AP poll. This is a team that had expectations. A lot of people were calling this the most talented team that Mike Whitson's had throughout his time with the Hoosiers. So this is a team that had plenty of preseason expectations. You add in the fact that you mentioned the amount of money and resources put into this roster with guys like Umar Ballo, the guards Kanan Carlisle, and Miles Rice. There's a lot of money and resources put into this roster and put into this team. The preseason expectations as well, and for all intents and purposes, Indiana hasn't really lived up to those preseason expectations. I mean, 6 of 7 they've lost, including 4 in a row, and it's probably going to get a lot worse here in the next coming weeks with Michigan coming in on Saturday, a tough Michigan State team that they're going to have to play on Tuesday, and 7 or 8 more quad one games after that. It's going to get a lot worse probably for Indiana, at least in the record department. That loss to Illinois stands out. That's kind of maybe not the tipping point, but maybe the final nail in the coffin, so to speak. 25-point loss and you're giving up a program record 94 points at home isn't getting it done, especially, again, considering the preseason number 17 rankings and all of the talent on this roster.
Yeah, it's definitely see that. But again, we're football centric, but there's just too much there to not discuss some of it as we look at this year and with basketball and everything that's going on. But we're going to jump into some of this recruiting stuff here, and hopefully I can get to the page that I'm wanting to. Yep, there we go. And what I picked up here, and let me bring you up here so you can be seen as well, other than a blob. Come on, here we go. There he is. Wanted to kind of go through a little bit of the rankings and things of that magnitude. This is all from Rivals, the Hoosier Rivals site. Very good site. Zach does a great job. There's a lot of different other writers there that do a fabulous job. So I would encourage you to head on over there and pick up on a lot of their coverage. They do a great job with a lot of it. But looking at the overall season right now with recruiting, Indiana, through the Rivals scenario here, had them, I want to say, 55, I believed, overall right now with their incoming class. And I'm going to try to get to the actual page for the That's 24. Excuse me. Um, to the kids so that we can take a look at you. 47 is where you had them ranked this year overall. Any insight onto some of these rankings as it pertains to Indiana?
Obviously, the headline here for Indiana, four-star guy. Tristan Abram was a late addition to the four-star rankings. He was initially a three-star, was a three-star pretty much throughout the recruiting process. But Tristan Abram, kind of the last second, was upgraded to a four-star as well. Those are kind of the top two kind of guys to keep an eye on. Those are two type of guys that could potentially compete for playing time at, as soon as they step on campus. You look at a guy like Byron Baldwin, that's a guy who was committed to Indiana, decommitted, then recommitted to Indiana. So his recruitment was kind of crazy in that sense. But Baldwin, especially considering that Indiana just lost defensive back Jameer Johnson to the transfer portal, Baldwin could be in store for some depth playing time at defensive back, whether that's at the safety position or at the quarterback spot. Tristan Abram is already a beast. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, and he's yet to step onto campus in Bloomington and really get that Derek Owings kind of treatment that Indiana football has with the strength and conditioning coordinator. Derek Owings, highly regarded as one of the better defensive or one of the better strength and conditioning guys that helps guys put on pounds and get in shape. So Abram should be a terror for Indiana, especially considering he's only going to get bigger. He's only going to get stronger, and he's already one of the bigger, stronger guys in the 2025 class. There's a lot of guys along the front, kind of the defensive line area, the offensive line, a lot of guys there. A lot of wide receivers. Indiana over the past couple of seasons hasn't necessarily hit the wide receiver ranks too deep. I mean, you've got guys like LeBron Bond, Miles Kendrick. Those guys are wide receivers that should come in and make a difference. Maybe not this year, but at least at some point in their Indiana career. Davion Chandler is a guy to keep an eye on for Indiana. He's a guy that decommitted from Illinois. He flipped from Illinois to Indiana. He's a guy from high school. Obviously, Donovan McCulley went to Lawrence North, who's now in Michigan, but Omar Cooper, also a Lawrence North product. So the pipeline of wide receivers coming from Lawrence North to Indiana continues with Davion Chandler. There's a lot of talent. Jacob Bell was late addition, flipped from from Ball State, at the quarterback spot. So there's a lot of talent, and what Chris Signetti and the staff has done so well, not only last season at Indiana, but throughout their time, whether it was at James Madison or wherever he's been. Signetti's done a great job of turning guys that aren't necessarily the most highly rated recruits into guys that are All-Americans. You look at a guy like Mikhail Kamara, not a highly rated recruit at all, and now he's an All-American. That's type of stuff this Indiana coaching staff does with development. So I think that's really the biggest thing you're looking at. These guys might be 3 stars. Some of them are 4 stars, but that's not going to be indicative of what they can do in an Indiana uniform considering the talent development for Indiana.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good assessment. And I always, with the transfer portal and a lot of questions about the foundational aspect of a recruiting class, I do think Indiana has done a really good job of making sure they're bringing in kids to be developed so they don't have to have a huge reliance on what is or is is not in the portal, because that's going to change. The days of 4,000 guys hitting the portal here shortly is probably going to be over and very limited because I know the coaches have already started talking about it with accusations of tampering and things of that magnitude. But I do think you've got to have you can get back. Sorry about that. I'm not quite sure what all happened with that. Just kind of everything everything went blank for a second and not sure what all happened. But the one kid that I was going to say that I'm pretty excited about is this Jarvarius Hall kid from Tennessee, defensive lineman, 6'2", 270. He can move really good. He has got some physicality. He's strong, moves pretty well. And I do think he's a kid that, again, adds some depth at spots where Indiana has always lacked some depth. And then you alluded to Jacob Bell. and bringing in a quarterback. We know why, because of Tyler Cherry and his situation. It now it sounds like he's going to miss the entire year with everything from that perspective. That's the one thing here. Let's see something here real quick. I think. That's definitely true. The 5-year COVID players are pretty much gone. I think that's a pretty fair assessment with that, right, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, you're not seeing as many guys playing till they're 23, 24. That might be slightly more of a basketball thing, that COVID year type, specifically type of thing. But you're not seeing as many guys staying as long these days, staying years, even getting like a 6th year type of thing. So yeah, you're definitely going to see college athletics in general kind of shift to a more younger approach.
Well, yeah, we hope so. So we don't have 30-year-old guys lining up for their umpteenth time and whatever. And I don't know how much you've dug into this, and I know that with this changeover, essentially, there's probably not going to be any more NIL because the scholarships, everybody's quote unquote on scholarship of the 105 of the limit and everything. But I'm wanting to know how they're distributing this money that's coming in, the 20 million or such. And I know that Indiana, I think, plans on using 80% of it. So I know that's a key aspect of things, is that knowing how much that's all going to be. Do you have any thoughts, or have you heard anything on that distributional aspect of that type of money with everything?
Yeah, what I've kind of heard is that Indiana's kind of taking it more on a position by position basis rather than a player by player basis. Hypothetically, let's just throw out some numbers here. Like Indiana sets aside X amount of money for their quarterback, X amount of money for their offensive line room, X amount of money for some wide receivers here and there, and then kind of within that position group, the money is kind of split up amongst the top players, the more talented players, the players that you would expect to earn a little bit more NIL money. So I don't think Indiana's doing it on really basis. I think it's more setting aside money for specific positions and position groups, and then within that position group, maybe 75% of the tight end money allotment will go to one tight end, and 15% go to end, and then 5%, and so on and so forth. So I think it's much more for Indiana, from what I've heard, is more on a positional basis rather than like an individual players making and that player is making that much. It's more that player in that position group is making X amount of money.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be an interesting for transparency aspects of things to see what all comes of this, because of all the different changes that we're seeing through all this, with also the Title IX aspect of things. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic as we get deeper in the distribution, how that's all going to happen. And I know they're already operating on it as well right now, as it pertains to how they're distributing it with this first group of players coming in this year in this 25 class, because that's kind of the first true year of it all. From that standpoint, I'm going to try to get over to the portal here if I can. Want to get to that and talk about some of the things there with Indiana's portal success, but let's see if I can get there. If not, I'll wish I could have. May have to reboot this. I'm doing this off my laptop, so hopefully let's go back out to the home and see if we can get there, Zach, with everything. Let's see here. That's commitments. I know you guys have the. All right. Any suggestion here, Zach, on where to kind of go here?
To plug the Hoosier.com, you can always, if you look up Indiana Football 2025 Transfer Portal Tracker, we have a Transfer Portal Tracker that has everything up to date, all of Indiana's additions in the portal.
I just had it a few minutes ago, and I for whatever reason, it's gone bye-bye. Oh, Jesus. Me and recruiting. Let's see if I can. This is crazy. All right, let's do this again. Zach, can you hear me?
Yes.
Jesus, this is unbelievable. Man, this is getting frustrating. Okay. Still, can you hear me, Zach?
I got you. Yep. I got you.
Everything has gone to hell in a handbasket, my man. As I was saying, we'll just keep going here because I do think I'm still rolling here. It's got me replugged in. The getting Coogan was a huge get here at the end of the portal. I know they would like to have had Spindler as well, but picking up a center who 13 games experience, he's 6'5"-ish, he's about 310 pounds, played a lot of football for Notre Dame. Your take on them picking up that big get right as the, kind of at the end of the portal there?
Yeah, that's absolutely massive, and it's something that Kurt Signetti kind of talked about earlier this week on his press conference during signing day. He said it's important just because of the amount of games that Coogan has started. He also pointed to Zin Mahalski out of Ohio State, another offensive line transfer. It's just important because of the amount of experience on the offensive line. It's something that Kurt Signetti said at the end of the season. I asked him a question after that Notre Dame game, and I was like, essentially just, Coach, what's the biggest difference between a team like Indiana and a team like Notre Dame or like Ohio State last year? And he said, he put it rather simply, the amount of size up front and the amount of depth up front. And Indiana didn't have necessarily those big 6'5", 300-pound offensive linemen. Not to say that Indiana's offensive line wasn't good last year, graded out as one of the better offensive line groups in the Big Ten. They just didn't have those 6'5", 300-pound kids that were made and built to play offensive line in the Big Ten, and that's exactly what Coogan is. That's exactly what a guy like Mahalski is out of Ohio State. Those are big dudes that are made for playing offensive line and made for playing offensive line in the Big Ten, and they've done it at those high levels. Indiana, of course, getting experience from Notre Dame, from Coogan, and then with Mahalski from Ohio State. So it's the amount of quality experience that these guys have. That might be the biggest thing for these guys and the most important reasons. Yeah, they're really good. Yeah, they're going to be additions and improvements to the offensive line. But just the sheer experience, especially playing at that high of a level, is about as good as it gets for Indiana.
Yes, it does. I mean, that is a very huge group of guys that they got in this class. I know some guys had left from Indiana. The Boykin kid that they picked up, the cornerback, he's out of, I believe he was at, I think, NC State. And then the kid they picked up from Pitt, the Gandy kid, he is very similar to what we have now with the cornerbacks, and then you add Lewis back into the fray at the safety spot. I think the secondary is going to be even better next year with what they brought in.